I'm on.
It's this bottom button here, right?
Yeah, hold it a bit longer. Now you're on.
Okay. All right.
All right. Good morning and welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, at the Cusp of Freedom. We'll be sharing our perspective on how my friend here became, why and how my friend here became a digital nomad. Just quick reminder to take everything we say here with a grain of salt. Mind you, we do have different backgrounds and experiences, talents, and things we're drawn to. So yeah, take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. Without further ado, we'll jump straight into it. Again, I have a very special friend, and I'll let him introduce himself so he can tell you his name, where he's from, what he does as a digital nomad, and maybe how long he's been a digital nomad for.
Absolutely. My name is Miguel Fernandez. I was born in Peru to Peruvian and Chilean parents, but I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and I've been a digital nomad for a year now. And I took a bunch of steps to become a digital nomad by first finding a way to work remotely and working online. And it led me through a path of exploring different opportunities. I came from a financial background where I worked in accounting, and that led to, I started in accounting back when everything was paper-based, so everything was files. And one of the first things I did when I branched out on my own and started doing bookkeeping services and different things for different people is I started digitizing things and created digital systems so that we didn't need to actually meet up in person.
Yeah.
So that was like the first step of me like on this path of like, okay, how can I work from home instead of having to work from an office and deal with paper, physical paper.
Nice.
So that's how I pretty much got into digitizing systems, creating systems and processes for companies that were more office or physical based in locations.
Nice.
And through that, I was able to keep tinkering away at my systems to find ways to kind of spend less and less time in front of people.
Okay.
I love people, but at the same time, I love my time and I hate commuting. So that was always my goal. So about in 2014, I was working for this construction company as an office manager. And that was the first opportunity I had to take everything I started. I took over for a bookkeeper who left a huge mess, tons of bankers' boxes full of files. And they're like, can you please just organize and just help us get digitalized. So it was my idea, so I grabbed a scanner. It was called a Scan Snap. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but that's the first thing I started doing. I started putting everything into digital folders. And then from there, I started looking at different softwares. And that was the beginning of new softwares such as timesheet management, expense management, QuickBooks desktop, which is what I was using before. They just introduced QuickBooks Online. So everything was starting to come together where I was able to create systems. And slowly but surely, I was like able to work from home 1 day of the week. Then it became 2. Then it became 5 days a week. Eventually, I only went to the office when I wanted to have some FaceTime with my boss.
Nice. So with this job in construction, how long has it been since you had it? Like about 10 years now?
Yeah, so 2014, or it's just about to start 2024. So yeah, it's been about 10 years now. And yeah, it's a lot of things led me to start my career because I started my career in a public practice accounting. From there, I worked in the music industry for a little while. I worked helping manage artists. I had some friends who were musicians. I helped them get grant money from the government. There's a lot of these government grants that they could apply for, so they helped them record albums and go touring. Did some logistics for them to help them plan their tours. So I got a little bit of experience working in different fields, but I always knew I just kind of wanted to work for myself and be a little bit more autonomous the way I worked. I never liked working in a large office setting.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Yeah, you have an interesting background. Let's dive into how you got here.
Yeah.
I guess the first question is, I don't know, when you were growing up, did you envision yourself becoming an accountant or?
I kind of fell into it. My father's an accountant.
Okay.
So we moved to Canada when I was 6 years old, and my parents have always been very hardworking people. So they taught me a really strong work ethic. For example, I never had an allowance growing up. When I was 8 years old, I got my first paper route, and I was delivering newspapers early in the morning. every day, and that's how I kind of had enough money to buy candy and buy things that kids like to get, like buy like hockey cards or playing cards or toys and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So I learned to be self-sufficient at a very young age, and once I finished high school, I worked in restaurants. I worked at the local ski mountains. I did a bunch of worked at gas stations. I worked whatever sort of thing I could do to make some money. And then my dad's like, well, why don't you come work in my office? First going to have to do a little bit of schooling, but so that's what I did. And he kind of helped guide me in that direction, because he's like, as long as you do a business degree, you can kind of go in any direction. And like, you don't need to be an accountant, but this is a good foundational thing to really understand how businesses work.
Yeah.
He works for a public practice. He has a public practice firm, so he deals with a lot of small business owners. So just being introduced to working with him, I had clients from every industry, and I got to like learn about how their back office works, and learn how like all the different problems that every industry has. And so that kind of got me like tons of exposure about like kind of carving my path of where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
At the time, because I had a lot of friends who are musicians and artists, I kind of went into that direction. Then realized how difficult.
You had a lot of friends, or your dad had a lot of friends?
I had a lot of friends
Okay.
so I actually brought them to my dad's firm as clients as well, because they were making some noise in Canada and the United States and touring, and I had a few artists that grew up and that I grew up with, and they became international sort of like musicians, and that was amazing to be a part of that rise. But I just knew how fickle that industry was, so I wanted something a little bit more permanent, and that's something that's always going to be high in demand, and that's not going to go through ups and downs like musicians do.
So you could have been a rock band player or something.
Yeah. But it's a tough life, I felt really bad for the musicians, because it was usually the management that made all the money, and the artists would be the ones starving. There'd be starving artists literally, and they'd be the ones having hit songs on the radio, but they'd be taking the bus, So there was a discrepancy there. So I didn't really feel that was a fair balance between the people who are actually creating and the people making money. I've always felt like people can make money together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, starting from construction or accounting, that led me into construction, and yeah, I think the mindset was a very powerful thing that kind of led me into trying something different and really always trying to improve the situation where I was in.
Okay,
So,
when you were a kid, did you play any sports?
yeah, I played soccer as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, soccer was something I started very young, and then I got into martial arts.
Okay.
So I did taekwondo. I got a black belt in taekwondo when I was 12 years old.
Nice.
And
Interesting.
then I jumped from there. I jumped into kickboxing, and I got a brown belt in kickboxing.
Wow.
And then when I was 15, I started partying a little bit too hard, and my priorities shifted. Kind of lost my way for a few years, and started hanging out with the wrong crowds, and my life kind of took a bit of a turn.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my late 20s when I kind of started
Getting serious again.
just getting serious about my life, and kind of having, sort of self-reflecting and be like, what do I want for my life?
You think when you were younger, being part of these soccer teams, taekwondo, kickboxing, or getting involved with these team activities helped you develop the mindset you have? And also, do you think you had a relapse into this lifestyle to party and all that and all this stuff because you didn't? Did you like long? Was it? I guess it was the perfect time, 15 and 18, where you want to like kind of rebelize a little bit. You think that was just that period.
Yeah. So the martial arts actually helped build discipline, which I lost, but I knew it was always something I could tap into. So if I needed to focus or concentrate on something, like that's what I learned from martial arts. It really taught me just to. I knew how to take care of myself if I wanted to, and I knew how to get into the mindset to get things done, because I had gone through so much adversity. Going through martial arts, like you go through a lot of tough times, and you learn and develop, and you get belts, you fail tests, you redo it, you pass. You have to break boards. Sometimes you don't break them, and you end up hurting your arm, and then eventually you end up breaking boards. So it's like you learn to fail, but also learn how to succeed.
How do you get past that?
So when I was 15, I think I just fell into, being influenced by my peers, and less about, I didn't really have a direction where I wanted to go. And I think I grew up in religious household where I was kind of held back from doing a lot of things I wanted to do as a kid, and everything was black and white, meaning like you can do this, you can't do that, you know, and that really affected my sort of. I wanted to rebel because my parents were always telling me no, I couldn't do things.
Yeah.
So the more you tell a child no, the more they're going to rebel and do what they feel like anyway. So. Yeah, I ran with the other kids who felt the same way, that were just maybe angry with life or didn't have great childhoods growing up. I had a really good childhood, but I tend to associate people who are, you know, creating problems and fell into a pretty bad lifestyle.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It makes sense though. I think a lot of us do this, like have these like situations, especially during like college times, like 19, 20.
Yeah.
I know I read a lot.
Yeah.
I was partying like hell.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay. So your dad basically funneled your way through accounting.
Yeah.
Throughout high school. So you went to college, or I guess like between 15 and 20, you didn't really know what you really wanted to do, besides the fact that your dad was telling you to do something.
Yeah.
Right now, looking back at that, looking back then, was your dad right, or do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. He was. He has this immigrant mindset, and he was always just hustling. He was someone who never stopped moving. So he, you know, growing up as a kid, he always had 3 jobs. You know, he had 3 different jobs. He worked in accounting, he worked in offices, and just to make ends meet. So he wanted me just to take my education seriously, considering that I grew up with a lot more opportunity than what he had growing up in Peru. So growing up in Canada, there's way more opportunity, and yeah, he really pushed me to take my life seriously. I wasn't really quite ready for that because I wasn't listening to everything he said, me being a rebellious person. But one of the things that definitely got out of my childhood was that we got to travel a lot, and that kind of spurred my desire to travel. So when I was 21. Instead of going to school, I said, you know what, I'm going to go traveling. I'm going to go to Australia for 6 months.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I got a working holiday visa, so I could go work and live in Australia and New Zealand. And that's the direction that I took. I wanted just to kind of see the world, and I felt that was going to be a better education than actually going to a formal education. At that
Wow,
point in my
that's
life.
interesting. A lot of people don't take that route. What triggered you to take that route, and
Yeah.
and how did that experience change your perspective on
Yeah,
things?
it definitely changed my experience. So my first travel experience was when I was 15. I met a friend who was from Spain, and we hung out for a weekend in Canada. He was doing some language course, and we just met and we hung out for an entire weekend, and he invited me to go stay with his family the following year. So when I was 15, I flew out there by myself. I flew to Spain by myself, and his family picked me up from the airport, and I stayed with his family for 3 months. And that was the first like big life experience I had, where I kind of grew up really quickly.
Yeah.
I saw the world from a different perspective. They taught me how to drink alcohol. In North America, there tends to be this thing where you can't drink until you're a certain age, until you're 21, I guess. And then people always start earlier, and then they end up just getting drink to get drunk, sort of thing. Went to Spain, they're like, if you're thirsty, drink water. You know, so remember the first time they gave me some local drink. They're like, this is from this region. It's really special. Take a sip and let me know what you think. I thought a sip meant to shoot it back, and they're like, listen, if you're thirsty, drink water. You really have to enjoy this. This is to sip on. This is to help initiate conversation. So they really put the emphasis on drinking as a way to socialize and communicate with people, as opposed to
Getting drunk.
As getting drunk and trying to escape from whatever problems you're facing.
That's a good point. I think I don't drink because I guess my perception has been that people only drink to get drunk.
Right.
Yeah, I don't follow the norm in that regard. So.
Yeah, so I think it's a cultural difference that made me think. I was like, oh, okay, wow, everything I grew up thinking is completely wrong, the way things are.
So yeah, you went to Spain. That changed your perspective by letting you know that you could do this. Because I'm guessing you were very young, and I'm glad your dad and your parents let you take that endeavor.
Yeah.
To go all the way across the world to be with a friend's family.
Yeah.
But wow, yeah. How did that I don't know when you came back? is that when you had set your goal to like you want work that helps you travel or something? Like how did that?
Yeah, so at that point I knew I wanted to travel more. I had the travel bug. Once I did that, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So once I finished high school, I was already planning my next trip. I wasn't thinking about settling down and getting an education. I just like, what's next? What's the next adventure I can take?
Wow.
When I was in Spain, actually, I went to a bullfighting match, and now I feel a lot differently about bullfighting. But I was kind of excited by it. You know, I saw the energy of the crowd. I saw the entertainment, and I jokingly said, "Oh, I'd like to do this as a career path."
Okay.
So they're like, "There's a bullfighting school down the street. If you're serious about it, and you can get your GED while doing bullfighting school,
Wow.
and then they'll groom you to become a professional bullfighter if you
So
really
you're a
want to do that."
professional bullfighter.
So I was thinking about it at the time.
Okay.
I called my parents when I'm in Spain. I'm like, "So I think I want to stay." They're like, "No, you're not. You are coming back on that flight, and you're coming back, and you're going to finish your grade 11 and finish your grade 12. Like you here in Canada, you are not staying." So that's probably a wise move on my parents' part, because I don't know what my life would have led, and I don't think I'd be very happy as a bullfighter long term. Especially the way I think about animals now. Like I love animals. I couldn't imagine killing animals for a living in that sort of manner. I think it's kind of barbaric. But at the time, it was me just exploring ideas of what I could do with my life.
Yeah.
And one thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to try living outside of what I knew.
Yeah, that's tough.
And learning about different things, because I learned so much in that 3 months. I really feel like I grew into an adult that summer.
Wow.
Because not only did I have a new experience with different people, but I also had an opportunity to hang out with people who are much older than I was. My friends had older friends, so they were in their mid-20s and I was 15.
Yeah.
So they were just like, you know, just taking care of me, you know, and just put their arms around me. It's like, "This is how you do it, Miguel." And they were kind of teaching me the ropes, showing me the ropes and saying, this is how things work.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was amazing because back at home, I would have just associated people my own age who are just messing around and just not really going directionless, and that's kind of the path I was going. So
Facts.
yeah.
Okay, so you go back and you're a completely new person. You're probably not associating with the same friends you had before.
Well, yes and no.
So no.
I ended up becoming a little bit more wild at that point,
Okay.
and got heavier into drinking, and I was smoking a lot, and I was experimenting with drugs, and I kind of got more into that because in Spain it's a very liberal culture as well.
Yeah.
The people I was with there, as older as they were.
Did your parents notice this shift?
Oh yeah, they noticed, and they just thought I was an out of control teenager. So once I finished high school, I worked a bunch of random jobs. I saved a lot of money so I could go on my next trip. And that was like my goal, was just to escape yet again. I have an older brother as well, so when he finished high school, he moved to a different city, and then he ended up moving to London, and he lived there for 3 years. He got a visa to work out there, and I was inspired by him. I was like, well, if he can go and live in a different country,
Why not? Yeah.
why can't I do that?
Facts.
And so Australia was an easy one because it's a part of the Commonwealth country. It's the same language. I could easily get work there if I wanted to. But that was the first kind of long-term trip I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you went to Australia for 6 months. You went without a job. You went just like you book your ticket, you book your stay maybe. So when you got there, how did you get a job? What did you get? Did you get what you intended to get out of that trip?
Yes and no. I didn't really ever feel at home there. So I bounced around a lot. I was working in restaurants, and that's what I did. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career path. I didn't really have a skill set. So I just took whatever jobs I could. I worked at a little smoothie shop for a little while. I worked in the kitchen of a restaurant, washed dishes, I cooked.
Interesting. Was the experience there much different than if you would have gone to a different state like Arizona per se? Like, would it have been?
Perhaps, yeah. Like I wanted to go fruit picking, because that's like what a lot of like tourists do when they're down there to make money. But I came at the wrong season. But I was open to any sort of job. So, you know, if I would have gone to Arizona or something like that, I'm sure there would have been different opportunities there as well. I probably would have been maybe more sucked into the Mexican sort of culture in Arizona or in the southern states.
Yeah, that might have had a whole different effect on you, but okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I really liked was just the independence and autonomy that I felt, and I could really just explore and be myself. And I think that's one of the amazing things about travel,
Yeah.
is that you can really just not really necessarily reinvent yourself, but you can just be whoever you want to be without the influence of your family or your friends trying to mold you into
Oh, they want you to think
behavior.
you are or something
Yeah,
like that.
and also that was the first trip I did on my own as well, like truly on my own. Like when I went to Spain, I went there by myself, but I knew I was going to stay with a family.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, it was truly me on my own. I was 21 or 22. I think I'm probably 21.
6 years later.
Yeah, 6 years later. And yeah, that was, I didn't think of it as being brave at the time, but now I look back, I'm like, that was pretty brave of me to go out on my own and not know anybody. I didn't have any friends at all. I just like, I'm just going to figure it out. I didn't even have a place to stay the first night.
Wow.
So I flew down there and then got to the airport, went through customs in Australia. They're like, where are you staying? I'm like, St. Kilda, which is like a neighborhood in Melbourne. They're like, where are you staying in St. Kilda? I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to find a hostel to stay in. They're like, you didn't even book anything? I was like, well, no. You know, it's like back then we didn't have internet, didn't have email. Well, emails was new, but it wasn't that accessible. Not every business had an email account.
Yeah,
for
it
example.
was a lot crazier to do that back then.
Yeah, so back then you'd have to call some international number and then make a reservation over the phone.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know what? There's a lot of hostels there. I'll just knock on all the doors and see whoever will take me. So that's how naive I was, and I had a 80-liter backpack, so I was walking around like a big giant turtle, oversized thing, and I was just trying to find anything that would take me in. So luckily the first place I went to, I was able to find a bed, and that was the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. What did you do while you were in Australia, and what was your takeaway after this trip?
Yeah, it was, I really just wanted to see the country, so through meeting other people I was staying at the hostel, they're like, we're going to this kangaroo sanctuary. I'm like, okay, cool, let's go to kangaroo sanctuary.
It was just about the experience.
Yeah, it was just more about experience, more about the travel, and getting to see new places that are on the opposite side of the world. I wasn't really trying to get anything really out of it, but what I did get out of it was meeting people from all over the world who all were kind of doing the same thing and able to bond with people and share experiences with people in different places. I think that's what I really got out of it. And to this day, I'm still in contact with a couple of them.
I was about to actually get you still in contact. Wow,
Yeah,
lifelong relations.
well, it's just made it easier with social media, and then with with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So, been fortunate enough to meet up with them in different places as well. So when we keep up, anytime I travel, I just say, hey, I'm in this place. And then when I was in South America, I met with one of the Swedish friends I met. And that was pretty cool. It's like, okay, we're meeting each other in a different continent now.
10, 20 years later, wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, which is pretty cool because you connect with people on a certain level, and it's normally at a time in your life when you're exploring and experiencing new things for the first time. And what's interesting is when you travel with people, you share those experiences with those people. And I love traveling with people that I know, because then you can always reminisce and talk about those times. So when you travel on your own, you kind of have to keep in contact with people. Otherwise, those memories are only in your head, and you have no one to really share them with.
Yeah.
Or you can share them with people, but people won't really.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's a cool story, but they won't really experience. They won't reminisce with you. You know?
Yeah, that's a big fact.
Yeah.
Okay, so you come back from Australia. You come back from Australia after these new experiences and meeting such amazing people. And I'm guessing you're telling yourself, you got to do this again.
Yeah.
But it also looks like it's time for you to go to college.
Yeah.
So what do you decide to do? Do you just funnel down the path that told you to do and major in business? Or?
Yeah, that's what I did. So I decided to settle down after and said I need to get a job, that I need to find a career path so I can actually travel and go there with a bit more money in my pocket and have the opportunity to work in a field that I'm interested in. So I went to a polytechnical school in Vancouver, and specialized in business management. Did a 2-year program, jumped into accounting, working for my dad for a couple of years. And at that time, I learned that I didn't really want to work in public accounting. I didn't like wearing a suit and tie every day. Okay. I hated wearing a tie. I felt like I had a collar on my neck. I did not like that feeling. So I eventually told my dad, listen, thank you for the opportunity, but I think I want to branch out on my own. I have friends who are musicians. I have different people, different avenues where people are asking me to help them with their taxes or helping them with write grant proposals so they can get some grant money.
But your dad was happy about this.
Yeah, my dad was like, kind of like, you sure? You know, this is a safer path for you. And I said, well, I kind of want to do my own thing. I don't want to live in your shadow.
That's tough.
Because at the time, everyone was looking at me like I was the heir to his company.
Yeah.
And so he has a bunch of employees, but I was getting preferential treatment.
Yeah.
Anytime he had a client, like a big client, he'd always bring me into the boardroom, and then I'd be able to sit with them. Whereas the person working on their files were sitting in the back, and they just look at me. It's like, why does this guy get? Like, obviously, the boss's son. But I always felt like I was just the boss's son.
Yeah.
And
You wanted to earn your...
yeah, I wanted to earn my own respect, my own stripes, and I didn't want to feel like I was there just because my father owned the business. So my dad understood that. He's like, hey, well, I know I cast a big shadow, and I don't want you to live under my shadow. So yeah, if you want to come back, if you want to do your own thing, come back in the future. That I would love that too. But he gave me his blessing, and immediately I started working with a few friends that were making music. But I also joined this company that was doing a TV show, a reality TV show, and they got a big contract from a local TV network to do this international show where they brought celebrities to developing countries to meet local leaders, like community leaders who are affecting real change in their communities. And one of the places that they wanted to go to was to Peru. They brought Cameron Diaz, the actor, to go meet with a local leader in Cusco. And they're like, oh, Miguel, you're from Peru. Why don't we bring you?
Okay.
And I was like, I would love to go. I've never been back to Peru. I left when I was 3 years old.
Yeah, interesting.
So at this point, I was probably about 25, 26 years old. And they're like, you should come. I was like, yep, I'm down. You know, so about a month before they're about to leave, they're like, oh, you know what? We got a budget issue. Unfortunately, we can't bring everyone that we wanted to bring, and you didn't make the list.
Wow.
But we'll get you on the next one.
Okay.
But by that point, I was so devastated. I was like, you know what?
I'm going to go anyway.
I need to go to Peru. Something's calling me. I haven't been back. This is where I was born. I've never been back to Peru. I'm 27 years old. I left when I was 3. Something was pulling me. So I was like, okay, on to the next trip. So I booked a ticket to go to South America. One of my friends said, what are you doing? I'm like, going to South America for a few months. He's like, can I come with you? Absolutely. So my friend from that I've known for a while, he joined me, and we went for 6 months. So we went backpacking. Started in Ecuador, went down to Peru, went to Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and finished in Brazil for Carnival, and had some friends that lived there.
Nice.
So that was the next sort of big trip that we took.
Yeah, that one seemed a bit more eye-opening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. That I always wanted to reconnect with my roots. I had a really good experience when I crossed into Peru. We did an overnight bus going through the border. Asked for a passport, give them my Canadian passport. They can see I was born in Peru. Because it says Lima, Peru, where your birthplace is. And they said, welcome home. And that was like, you know, that felt really good, you know. It made me feel at home right away from the moment I got in there. And I needed that. I needed to reconnect with my family. I needed that experience. And that really kind of even further spurred my travel, my desire to find a way to make it work in Latin America. I was like, you know what? I want to be able to work here somehow. I don't need to live here, but I want to find a way to be more connected to my birthplace.
Yes.
And I felt more at home, even though I grew up in Canada. There, I felt like a lot of people I looked like I'd buy clothing, the clothes just fit me. You know, everything, like they're made for my body type, you know? Like it was just like everything just worked. I was like, this is home. The food just like mixed in with me really well. The people's sense of humor, the way the people were. I was like, these are my people, you know? And yeah, I just wanted to experience more of that. So I left that trip just really thinking about what I could do to bring value and create opportunity in Latin America. And I was looking more outwards than I was inwards. Because I saw opportunities. I'm like, there's all these underdeveloped areas that could be amazing for the communities and for the economy and for tourism. And there's beautiful places. They just need a little bit of maybe a little bit of support just to get there. And that would just create a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. So I was thinking more in those terms. So I came back and I said, you know what, I think I want to become an engineer. So I can kind of like engineer these plans.
Solution, yeah.
Turns out I wasn't cut for it. But when I came back to Canada, I said, you know what, I came back to Vancouver and it was raining. And I was like, oh, why am I back here? Because I've never been a fan of the rain. You know, it's kind of funny. Wherever you grew up with, you probably want the opposite of. So
you get a lot of it.
yeah, so I got a lot of rain in Vancouver, and I never liked it. I have a friend who's from Cuba, where it's sunny all the time.
He loves the rain.
He loves the rain. He hates the sun. He says the sun gives him headaches.
Yeah.
So he's just like, it's kind of funny. We tend to want the things that we don't have.
Yeah.
Right. So I had itchy feet again. I said, okay, I'm going to move to Montreal, and Montreal's on the opposite side of Canada. So that was a whole new experience as well, because it's culturally different as well. They speak French as like the main language. It feels more like a European city as opposed to
What was
Canadian.
the drive towards that? Was it the job or was it London? What was
It was, honestly, it was cheaper education.
Okay.
The government pretty much subsidizes most of the cost of education.
Okay.
Cost of living is a lot cheaper there too.
So you were thinking of going back to school or something?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to university because I only had a 2-year diploma in business, which was good. It served me well, and it was able to give me some work in accounting. But I wanted to do more, and I thought at the time I wanted to become an engineer. So I was doing pre-engineering courses in Montreal while balancing working like random jobs. I was doing some bookkeeping for various companies there, but I was also working at a pub, at English pub, which is a great experience. But I was working the stupidest hours. I'd start at 4 p.m. and finish at 4 a.m.
Wow.
And
That's
I wouldn't
nice.
actually be able to go to sleep till 6 or 7 in the morning.
Wow.
And I'd wake up middle of the day and then
Yeah,
repeat that cycle.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And I was also trying to be a full-time student at that time. So I pretty much flunked out of university.
Wow.
And that didn't work out for me. So eventually my time ran out in Montreal. I wanted another change. I didn't really feel at home in Montreal. I didn't really agree with the politics and some of the things that were happening at the time I was there.
So you no longer wanted to live and work in
So
Montreal?
no longer wanted to live and work there. I never felt like I could really belong there. I was having a really hard time learning French.
Yeah.
In Montreal, they don't speak the best French either. So they're not really patient with people learning to speak French either, because they all speak English, so they'll just switch back into English really quick.
Yeah.
Met some good people there, but I realized that wasn't my home either. So ended up moving back to Vancouver. And then I needed to do something. So pretty much went back to my dad, and he's like, you know what? I got some clients. I got some construction clients who really need some help. So that's how I got into construction. And that led me into, it's like, okay, I got this wealth of experience of dealing with different companies, different experiences. Never worked for a construction company before. Let's give that a try. And right away, I saw myself being able to add value to that company by saying, you know what? You guys are a mess. Let me organize you guys, and let's bring it online. Let's bring it digital. And while doing that, I saw that they had a lot of holes in their project management system. So I decided to take some courses. I went back to the same Polytech school where I got my business degree, and I did some training in construction management. So I learned about project scheduling and cost estimation, different areas that they were kind of lacking in. And right away, I just saw that I was able to immediately add value and create processes and systems for a company that was just kind of running like the Wild West and doing their own thing and not really completing projects on time or on budget. And I started creating and implementing systems. I was like, wow, there's something to this. Now, they weren't really paying me that well, but they were like, gave me the opportunity to hone my skills and actually really like learn how to do new things and really just experiment. It's like, let's try bringing this online. Let's try doing this. Let's try creating this type of schedule. Let's try doing the Gantt schedules. So my time kind of ran out there, and I had a friend working for a different company based in Vancouver that was like closer to where I lived, and they were looking for someone to help them out, and they were kind of in the same boat, but now I had about 3 or 4 years of experience under my belt, and I immediately sold them on like what I could do for them. And so I started as an ops manager for them, then I became a construction manager, and then now I'm like their estimator. and I helped do all the pre-construction for their projects. But because I'd already created digital systems for the previous company, I was able to bring that to the new company and bring it to a different level. And they didn't have an office, so that worked perfectly for me. I'm like, I'll just work from home. If we need to meet in person, we'll meet in person. And so we just worked that way, and I'd maybe see them once every couple of weeks.
Oh.
And then the pandemic hit, and then that really changed things where we had to, like, as a team, collectively had to meet online for our meetings. And I was already, used to that. We started using Google Meet. That used to be, because we were all using Google accounts. So Google Meet was our go-to, and it still is today. So that led me to be like, okay, well, I don't really need to be in Canada anymore. I can really be location independent, which led me to be like, okay, well, what's my first digital nomad experience going to be? So last year, after everything finally opened up, I went out to Puerto Vallarta with my ex, and we had 3 months living in Puerto Vallarta, where we lived in it wasn't a co-living place, but it was a 6-unit building with a shared rooftop.
Oh, awesome.
And so on the first day that we got out there, we went up to the rooftop. It had a palapa, which is like a big hut sort of thing there. So we all hung out there, and there was all these young digital nomads that were all just working on their laptops there. Like, oh, wow. I immediately made friends with everybody, and everyone had the same sort of lifestyle where they were just trying to figure it out, but they were all working for companies based in the States or based wherever in Europe. And we just had the same lifestyle. So we're like, what are you guys doing for dinner? Let's go out for dinner. We brainstorm ideas, and we all had to work our 9-to-5s during the day. So we all kind of did our things. Well, a couple of them were yogis, so we do yoga in the morning together, or breathwork sessions in the morning. And we built this little community, and almost everyone that was there, they were there for longer term. So it really felt like a co-living space, even though we had our own kitchens and our own bathrooms and our own suites and stuff.
Wow.
But that was the first experience we had, and from there I was like, okay, this is going to be a lifestyle. So the reason why we went to Puerto Vallarta is because me and my ex had just bought a house, and we needed to renovate it. So we said, okay, well, we're not going to live through the renovation, so why don't we set the team up for success? So my company actually helped us out with the renovation. We bought everything, like all our appliances and all our fixtures and everything, left it in the garage and said, okay, guys,
It's up to you.
make it work. We left to Puerto Vallarta, and 3 months later come back into a newly renovated house.
Nice.
And because my experience of working in construction, I planned it like clockwork. Normally a renovation of that size could take 6 to 9 months. We did it in 3.
Wow. So you come back, but you met this different lifestyle you met other people that pursued the same lifestyle you want to pursue. So how does that feel coming back to a newly renovated home and knowing that you're probably going to pursue that lifestyle?
Yeah, it was. We were just thinking about the next plan. So we incurred a bit of debt to do our renovation. So we're like, okay, let's just pay off the debt, and then once we pay off the debt, we can get back on the road. It just so happens that this year, my relationship with my ex just ended. We were together for 9 years, and we're still on good terms. We're amicable. It's all good, but we decided just to, split our ways. So immediately when we decided to do that, she just wanted to stay and keep the house. I was like, perfect, you can keep the house. I'm going to go back on the road. Nice. So I went straight to Peru.
Nice.
So I always had an intention of going back on the road. It was just a matter of when, and I was really inspired from the people I met last year in Puerto Vallarta who, I just picked their brains, like, how does this work? How do you set up a mobile office? How do you keep in contact with your people? Like, what's the cell phone situation like? How's your internet work? And they were like, yeah, this is how we do it. Met some travelers who'd been on the road for 5 years, hadn't been home in 5 years, and found ways to make it work.
Like, very feasible.
Yeah, so as long as you have your systems set up, and I've always been a systems and process person.
Interesting.
But something I'd always had, and I think is the work ethic. And because I'd been with the same company, I think what made it possible for me to live this lifestyle is building the trust with my team, being accountable, always taking my work seriously. Like, I'm dedicated to my job 9 to 5. And I prefer to, when I was younger, I'd never wanted a 9 to 5. I thought that was way too being put into a box. Yeah. Now I appreciate that because you can actually put everything into a box and then you can live your life outside that box instead of like working every day, but or having to miss things because you have to work on the weekends. Like I've never wanted to miss out on things. I used to work in restaurants where I had to miss friends' parties and stuff. So like, oh, I've got to work tonight.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd rather be like, you know what? There's actually some beauty in having like an actual set structure and a set routine. And I think I learned that when I was in South America doing that 6-month trip with my friend, where the tail end of it, I was actually miserable. And, you know, even though I was experiencing life and meeting a lot of people and exploring, I found myself miserable because I didn't have a routine. And I really lost sense of what I was doing every day. I was just waking up and drinking and partying, and I kind of knew I needed something more. There had to be something more to life. So part of what I'm doing now is like I'm really spending time to work on myself. I am working, but I'm also taking the time to start every day doing the inner work I need to do in order to be stable and have some sense of direction of where I'm going. And I think it's really important to have a vision of whatever you're doing. You need to have a vision. It can't just be, life can't just be about work. You got to have more of a vision about where you want to go long term. And something that's always made me happy is travel. Good weather as well. So beaches, you know, something that we don't really have in Canada. So again, seeking things that we don't really have back at home. But really it's, I think the value, knowing where your value lies and knowing how you can share that value with other people has always been my main thing, and always trying to improve things for other people. I don't think I could just do something for a paycheck. I think it has to be something that resonates on a deeper level for me, where I can actually better the lives of people that I'm around. And I think that that's where I feel like I can bring the most value and be at the most satisfied and at peace with like what I'm doing.
Nice. So do you feel like with your current role, you feel that way, that you're bringing enough value and you're at peace with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel very fortunate to find the group of people I'm working with. My boss he's always like kind of challenged me on a personal level to really know what I want. And he's like, you need to know what you need, and you need to tell me what you need so that we can see if we can be the right fit for each other. And so, you know, whenever I think early on we had our kind of a little bit of a speed bumps when, you know, didn't pick up the phone, and then he would just, you know, he would call me the next day and be like, hey, I tried calling yesterday, you didn't pick up. He's like, if we're gonna work together, we need to have that open communication and dialogue. I need to trust that, because we don't see each other every day, but I need to know that you're working, and I need to know that you're on top of things. And so, you know, I'm lucky to have someone who really challenged me on a personal level. He's be like, he pretty much said, I feel uncomfortable, you've made me feel uncomfortable. Another example was one time I booked a vacation, and I said, oh yeah, I need some time off. He's like, whoa, what? Like, what? You need some time off? It's like, that's fine, of course you got to need time off, but I would have preferred that you actually ask me for the time off before you go ahead and book your ticket. You know, there's like, of course you're gonna get the time off. Yes, the answer is yes. However, you put me in an uncomfortable position. So just being personally checked, I think was really good for our relationship, because we didn't really understand our boundaries. Like, okay, I didn't really consider that. Now I'm gonna be more considerate moving forward, and I'm gonna check in with you about timing if I need to take time off before I go and book something, because I understand that now makes you feel uncomfortable, because now you feel like you're, you know, back's against the wall and you kind of have to say yes. So that helped build the trust, because I didn't take it personally. I didn't get defensive. You know, I realized that I was wrong. And sometimes you kind of have to go through these learning experiences in order to develop that trust. So now me and him, we know how each other thinks. So he says, Miguel, I have a problem. I'm already thinking the solution. You know, and I think that as a digital nomad, you have to be a solutions-oriented person. You're always planning the next step.
Absolutely.
You're always thinking about what your business is doing. You're always thinking one step ahead. You're not waiting for things to happen to you. You're always, it's quite the opposite. So I kind of found myself, even in my role right now, I am a solution-based person, and I'm the person who people come with me with problems, and I'm the one trying to navigate a solution out of it. And it goes with our lifestyle, you know, like all of us that we've talked to, we're all kind of applying the next steps or finding what's best for us we're not waiting for someone to give us an itinerary of what to do every day.
Talk, you know?
You know, it's like we're all, in a way, even if we're employees, we're all entrepreneurs of our own life.
Absolutely.
You know, we're all creating our own paths.
Absolutely.
You know, we're bushwhacking, creating our own ways. We're doing the unconventional thing. The safe thing is to go work in a big corporate office and just like keep your head down and just do what you're told and not look at other things. I could never feel like I'm giving anyone any value if I don't speak up.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an expression that I really liked that I heard at a very young age. They said, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
So if you want something, you have to speak up.
Out,
You have to go. So one of the things I've always known is like if I see there's something not working or something, there's problems or there's something, there's a better way to doing something. And so that's the way I've always carried my life. It's like, if I make a mistake or something like that, okay, well, how do I prevent this mistake from happening again? How do I not put myself in this position again?
That's how you grow,
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Nomad experience is a lot, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's exciting one because it encourages growth, encourages exploration, it encourages being open to new experiences and new points of views, and maybe realizing that that you have some misconceptions that you kind of grew up with. You thought that things were this way, but then realize that you learn, you're like, wow, it's not quite like that. Like all my life I thought things worked this way, and now I've realized, no, it's not so black and white. You know, there's different spectrum of colors.
Facts.
And it's a beautiful thing, and it inspires me to be around people like yourself, who's, you know, creating this new application, this new app that kind of brings more people together. And what you're doing, you're creating a community, and this is a beautiful thing. I think it's really, we're sharing ideas, sharing experiences, and this is what life's all about.
I think I absolutely agree with you, bro. So given that you're here, you mentioned a very, very, very good key points, like, you know, you had to be responsible while you were at work. You had to develop a sense of communication with your boss. These are some of the little things that helped you get to this lifestyle where you can work and travel, right?
Right.
But you didn't become a digital nomad as an accountant. How would you define your role as a digital nomad to a 5-year-old?
Right. I think simply put, I'm someone who works in front of a computer and can work with a laptop and work out of a coffee shop or work there. I don't think I could really explain my job to a 5-year-old other than that, the simplicity of being able to work wherever I feel like.
Yeah. If you could define a set of skills that you have that someone younger than you watching could adapt to or harness to become like you or better, what set of skills do you think one will need to develop?
Yeah. Number one, be curious. Be curious about learning about things you don't know, and being resourceful. Be curious and resourceful, because now with the power of the internet, everyone has it on their device in their hand. You can Google absolutely anything. Now chat GPT, you know, you can do anything. So I think being curious and being resourceful, I think, will be the most important skills or traits you can have in your life. Because if you can have that, you can create value for anybody if you're able to figure things out. Some people are just don't have the time, or they're lazy or whatever, just to try to figure things out themselves. They want someone else to come with a solution for them. If you're curious, you can learn anything. Like, I taught myself a lot about construction without having a construction background. At first, I was really nervous because I was like, I don't know anything about construction. I don't know the terminology. You learn. You start pick up a book, read articles, watch YouTube videos. That's how you become resourceful. Always, even like how to do this, how to paint a wall.
It starts with curiosity, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, take ideas down. Another thing too that I really liked, and I learned from one of my bosses, I think worked at a restaurant. He was a manager for about 60 employees, and 60 random employees who would always ask him for questions, whether they would need a time off or they needed an extra uniform or they needed whatever. Not only that, but he dealt with all the distributors, so the beer companies, like, we need to do an inventory check, or we need to do this. Or he had so many different roles. So I observed him one day, and I was like, wow, this guy is managing a lot of different information. His technique was he had a little notepad in his back pocket with a little pencil. Anytime anyone said anything, he took it down. Once he got in front of his computer, he'd like pull out his notebook, there's a little notepad, and just like download all the stuff and put it into tasks or action everything that he needed to do. So he developed a system that worked for him, but it kept him accountable and it kept him on top of things. So no matter how many things, he never forgot things. I said, his name was Steve. I was like, Steve, I need next Saturday off. I got a friend's wedding. No problem. I never had to ask him twice. He just like, he made it happen. Schedule came out the next week and it's like, there you go. He gave me Saturday off. You know, so I was like, that made me kind of think, I'm like, wow, there's always a way to figure things out and always a way to organize.
Yeah.
We're in the age of information right now.
Facts.
So we have to find a way to organize all those things because it can be overwhelming. It can really be overwhelming. So I think that being curious, being resourceful, and being organized are probably the three things I would like advise anyone who wants this lifestyle or who wants to kind of explore being a digital nomad. I think if you can find ways to master those three things, I think you're like going to be set for success.
Nice. Very good advice. Given we've discussed basically why and how you got here, do you see yourself in this position for the decades to come? And would you advise someone to pursue the role that you're specifically doing, digitalizing file or companies that have like a lot of paperwork? Do you advise someone to pursue this route? Or if you were younger, watching yourself now, what would you advise yourself to pursue in this coming age?
Yeah, I think I would done things a lot similar, but at the same time, I would have tried to learn as many skills as possible and maybe read more. You can learn a lot from other people's mistakes, and a lot of people, and history repeats itself. There isn't a problem that exists in the world that hasn't been done by, hasn't been figured out or been experienced by somebody else. And yeah, maybe with technology it might be a little different than how it happened, but it's the same sort of problem. Yeah. And I think, just reading, you can learn a lot from other people's ups and downs. And the most successful people have always had downs, and they've grown from those bad experiences or from those learning experiences. Yeah. I like this expression I hear, Conor McGregor's coach. I don't know, Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, if you've heard of him. His coach said, there's wins and there's lessons. Yeah. He never looks at them as losses, just lessons.
For champions.
Yeah, exactly. So there are always losses, but it's not really a loss if you gain something from it. Like, for example, I just ended a 9-year relationship. I don't see it as a loss or as a failure. At first, I kind of see it as a failed marriage. I'm like, no, it wasn't. I actually learned so much. I gained more out of that experience. Yeah. And I think that anytime that we have a loss in life or anything at all, we have to reframe the way we're looking at it.
It's perspective, huh?
It's perspective, yeah, exactly. It's like we learned something that we didn't know yesterday, so how can that be a loss? Yeah. Like, it's always going to be a win. Right.
All right, yeah. Now we discussed, basically how you got here. Yeah. Do you think this whole trend of becoming a digital nomad is good? Is a good trend? Where do you see this trend going?
Yeah, I think it is a good trend. I personally probably won't be a digital nomad forever. I think I'm going to settle somewhere, but I'll always find a way to travel. Like, I've always had this dream of doing 6 and 6. Yeah. 6 months, wherever I'm based out of, and 6 months kind of moving around. Yeah. But I think the whole trend of what people are doing now, I think it's just kind of like the way of the world now. And I think there's a lot of value for people to be exposed to other cultures. And experience. I think travel is the best education anyone can have. Yeah. It really is. Like, especially if you immerse yourself, you're open to new ideas. Never been to any Middle Eastern countries, and I've always really wanted to go. It's just because I have a perception of what it is from being from the West. Yes. But I imagine, and I've heard of people their perspectives have changed, and they're less critical of the way things are. And they see the beauty and like the the humanity and the love and the culture that people actually have, even though it's expressed differently than what we're used to.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that can actually unite us as human beings more than anything else. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being a digital nomad.
Nice.
Is we can feel a lot more. We can see all the similarities more than separation. I think they're.
Wow, that's a good one.
I think the politics and what you see in the media, they really try to separate people and kind of pitch people against each other and say, like, focus on people's differences.
Yeah.
But everyone has red blood, right? Everyone eats, everyone cries, everyone laughs. No matter where you're from, everyone shares the same sort of things. Everyone has a struggle. Life is struggle, but it's a beautiful struggle, right? And everyone has it. So even the richest people, some of the richest people I've met have had the worst tragedies happen in their families, people being murdered or people being killed or people getting sick. No one's immune to that,
Yes.
Right? So it's
No one's immune to life.
no, exactly. No one's immune to life. No matter how privileged you grow up, you're going to have some challenges, and you're going to have your own, journey and experiences and challenges in life that you're going to have to overcome. So, I think that's what travel teaches me, and being a digital nomad, it gives me the outlet to actually live a lifestyle without, in the past I used to take vacations and just go into debt. I'm going to live all out because I get 1 or 2 weeks off a year, and I'm just going to go all out and I'll just pay it off during the year. It's fine. I just need some beach time or whatever I need. But now I can actually live that life and work out of a place like this and meet people like yourself, where we can have really good dialogues and exchanges. And who knows, maybe we won't see each other for a few years, and then we'll just run into each other at a different co-living and like Marvin, what's up? We'll probably do another version of this podcast. And we'll have a whole different perspective about where things are at.
Man, that's interesting. Yeah, I think some of the things I've thought about is if many people become nomads, the local populations might experience gentrification a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that's also something the government of those locals communities should be regulating.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that we discussed basically why and how you became a nomad, gotten your perspective on the trend in general, do you have any life philosophy that you live by, or that one can take with them to apply in their daily lives?
Yeah, I think right now I'm going through a lot of personal change right now, and I think it's just learning to be compassionate, not only with others, but especially with yourself, and just learning to love yourself. I do this thing every day now where I look at myself in the mirror, I look directly in my eyes, and just tell myself I love myself. And then that'll just help me, guide me to make good decisions in my day to day, and actually make me appreciate the people around. So I think just having that compassion for yourself, because I think a lot of us, we're really hard on ourselves. And we always compare ourselves to other people or what we should be doing at our age or our stage of life, and I should have made this mistake. And we're really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think just being compassionate, especially towards ourselves, because if we love ourselves, we'll love everybody around us, and we'll really want what's best. It's the golden rule: treat other people though you want to be treated yourself. It's first you got to treat yourself really well, and then really know what that is to really project that outwards.
That's a really good point. Wow, I like that perspective. Well, yeah, now that we've summed up basically why and how you became a digital nomad and got your life perspective, I'd like to wrap this up by saying that it's been an immense pleasure having you on this podcast, and thank you so much for sharing all your gems and your stories.
Thank you.
I really hope someone watching was able to pick up on the adversities that you went through and how you overcame them. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for bringing me on.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun for me too. Is it off? Yeah.
Let me hold that down.